I watched my daughter Harper pull open the drawstring on her gift bag, her 7-year-old face bright with excitement. We were at my sister Brenda's backyard birthday party for her twin boys Tyler and Connor, who were turning 9. All around us kids were laughing and tearing into their goodie bags, pulling out small toys and candy. But when Harper reached inside hers, her small hand came out, holding only a bright yellow sticky note. She turned it over her lips, moving as she read the words written in my sister's unmistakable handwriting. "Try harder, next year." Her smile faltered. Her eyes found mine across the picnic table, confused and starting to glisten with tears. The other kids noticed. They started whispering. My heart turned to stone in my chest. I stood up, walked over to Harper, and took her hand. I didn't say a word to anyone. I just led my daughter through the crowd of family members, past my sister's smug face, and straight to our car. We left. The drive home felt endless. Harper cried quietly in the back seat, clutching that horrible yellow note in her fist. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. When we got home, I helped her out of her party dress and into comfortable pajamas, then held her on the couch, while she finally let herself sob. "Why doesn't Aunt Brenda like me?" she asked, her voice so small it broke something inside me. I smoothed her hair back from her forehead. "Sweetheart, this isn't about you. You didn't do anything wrong." But then Harper said something that made my blood run cold. "She's always mean to me, Mommy. Remember when she said my drawing wasn't good enough for her refrigerator, and she didn't invite me to the sleepover with Tyler and Connor 3 months ago? She said it was only for bigger kids, but Sarah from my class went, and she's my age. And at Thanksgiving she made me sit at the little table by myself, while all the other cousins sat together at the big table." I sat there stunned. How had I missed this? How had I been making excuses for my sister all this time, telling myself she was just busy, just stressed, just distracted? The truth was staring me in the face. Brenda had been systematically cruel to my daughter, and I had been too blind to see it. After Harper finally fell asleep that night, I walked through my house in a daze. It was almost 11 o'clock. The anger that had been simmering all evening suddenly crystallized into something clear and cold. I started going through closets, drawers, shelves. Every Christmas gift Brenda had given us over the past 7 years. Every birthday present. The hand-me-down clothes from Tyler and Connor that she'd passed along with that condescending smile. Kitchen utensils she'd bought us when I first got my own place after my divorce. A set of books she'd given Harper for her 6th birthday. That ridiculous decorative throw pillow that said "Sisters Forever" in cursive writing. I loaded everything into boxes and bags. It took me until 2 in the morning, but I filled the back of my car with every single item that had come from Brenda. Then I drove across town to her perfect house in her perfect neighborhood, with the manicured lawns and the decorative mailboxes. I arranged everything on her front porch in neat, careful stacks. I wrote individual notes for each item, explaining what occasion it was from. The book's Harper's 6th birthday, when you told her she needed to read more because she was behind the other kids. The kitchen stuff. Housewarming gifts when you said my apartment was too small for a real kitchen anyway. The clothes, hand-me-downs, you said, would be perfect since I couldn't afford new things. On top of the largest pile, I placed a sign I'd made on a piece of poster board. "Since Harper didn't try hard enough, we're returning everything. Thanks for the memories." I drove home and fell into bed just as the sun was starting to come up. My phone woke me 3 hours later. It was my mother, Patricia, and she was hysterical. "What did you do to your sister?" she screamed, before I could even say hello. I sat up, rubbing my eyes. "What are you talking about?" "Brenda woke up this morning and found all that. That stuff on her porch, her neighbors saw it. She's mortified. She called me crying, 'Eliza, how could you do something so cruel?'" "Cruel," I laughed, a harsh sound that surprised even me. "Did she tell you what she did to Harper? Did she mention the note?" "She said you took something the wrong way, that it was just a joke, that you're being too sensitive, like always." Like always. Those words hit me like a slap. "I need to go, Mom." "Don't you hang up on me, young lady. You need to apologize to your sister right now." I hung up. Then I made the mistake of opening social media. My sister had already posted about the incident, But her version was completely different from reality. According to Brenda's post, I had shown up at her house at 2 in the morning, screaming and throwing things that I was mentally unstable and dangerous, that she was worried about my mental health and feared for her children's safety. The post already had hundreds of comments, all sympathetic to poor Brenda, who had to deal with her crazy sister. Worse, she'd tagged my employer. I worked as a pediatric nurse at a local clinic, and now my professional reputation was being dragged through the mud on the internet. I was still staring at my phone in disbelief when my doorbell rang at noon. 2 police officers stood on my porch. Brenda had filed a harassment complaint. She was also filing for a restraining order, claiming she feared for her children's safety because of my erratic and threatening behavior. I invited the officers in, explained calmly what had actually happened, showed them screenshots I'd taken of Harper's tear-stained face in the car, but I could see the skepticism in their eyes. They'd already seen Brenda's version. They'd already seen the photos she'd posted online. They took my statement and left, but one of them handed me a court summons on his way out. As I closed the door behind them, I realized I'd severely underestimated my sister. This wasn't just about a mean note at a birthday party anymore. Brenda was coming after me with everything she had, and she was better at this game than I'd ever imagined. Monday morning, I dropped Harper off at school and immediately noticed the other mothers staring. They clustered in their usual groups near the front entrance, but instead of the polite waves I usually got, they whispered behind their hands and turned away when I looked at them. One woman I'd always been friendly with, a mom named Carol, whose daughter was in Harper's class, actually crossed to the other side of the parking lot to avoid me. When I picked Harper up that afternoon, she climbed into the car with red, swollen eyes. She'd been crying. "Baby, what happened?" I asked, my stomach already knotting with dread. "Tyler and Connor told everyone you're crazy," she said, her voice shaking. "They said you tried to hurt Aunt Brenda, and that the police had to come talk to you. Now nobody wants to play with me." I wanted to scream. Instead, I took a deep breath and drove us home, holding Harper's hand the whole way. My phone didn't stop ringing all day. First my mother, then my aunt, Susan, then my cousin Madison. Every single one of them had the same message: I'd overreacted. I was being too sensitive. I needed to apologize to Brenda and make this right. Nobody asked about Harper. Nobody asked about the note. Nobody seemed to care that a grown woman had deliberately humiliated a 7-year-old child. By Tuesday evening, my mother had organized what she called a family meeting at her house. She made it clear my attendance wasn't optional. When I arrived, I found not just my mother and Brenda, but also Brenda's husband Derek, my uncle Frank, and Aunt Susan. They were sitting in the living room like some kind of tribunal, all eyes on me as I walked in. Patricia gestured to an empty chair positioned in the center of the room. "Sit down, Eliza. We need to talk about your behavior." "My behavior?" I stayed standing. "What about Brenda's behavior? What about what she did to Harper?" Brenda dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. She looked perfect as always, her blonde hair styled just so, her makeup flawless, despite the tears she was producing on command. I was trying to motivate Harper. "Eliza, she's fallen behind in her schoolwork, and I thought a little push would help. I never meant to hurt her feelings. But you completely overreacted. You vandalized my property and terrorized my family in the middle of the night." "I didn't vandalize anything. I returned your gifts." At 2 in the morning, Derek spoke up, his voice hard. "You woke up the whole neighborhood." Brenda was terrified. Patricia held up her hand. "Eliza, honey, we're worried about you. We've all been worried since your divorce from Harper's father 3 years ago. You haven't been yourself. You've been so unstable." The word hit me like cold water. Unstable. Too sensitive, Aunt Susan added. "Always taking things the wrong way. Creating drama where there isn't any. Maybe you need to talk to someone, dear. A professional." I looked around the room at their faces. These were people I'd known my entire life. My family. And every single one of them was looking at me like I was the problem. Then Patricia said something that made my heart stop. "Eliza, you know your father and I worked hard to build a good life for you girls. The lake house is worth about $400,000 now. We always plan to split it between you and Brenda when we're gone. But if you can't get yourself together if you keep acting like this, I'm going to have to reconsider." Brenda leaned forward, her expression a perfect mask of concern. "Maybe Eliza needs professional help, Mom. And maybe," she paused, as if the thought was just occurring to her, "maybe Harper should spend more time with our family. For stability, just until Eliza gets back on her feet." The room went silent. I felt like I couldn't breathe. They were talking about taking my daughter. "You're insane," I whispered. "All of you. You're actually insane." I walked out before anyone could respond. I made it to my car before I started shaking so hard, I had to sit in the parking lot for 10 minutes before I could drive. But as I was pulling out, someone tapped on my window. It was Uncle Frank. I rolled down the window, wary. He looked around nervously, then leaned in close. "Eliza, I need to tell you something, but you can't let anyone know it came from me." "What?" "This isn't the first time Brenda's done something like this. Do you remember your cousin Rachel?" I frowned. "Rachel. She moved away years ago. I haven't heard from her in forever." "That's because of Brenda. 10 years ago, Brenda spread rumors that Rachel had stolen from your mother's purse. It wasn't true. Rachel stopped coming to family events after that because nobody believed her. Brenda systematically destroyed her reputation, just like she's doing to you now." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Why didn't anyone stop her?" "Because she's good at it, Eliza. She documents everything. She twists the truth just enough that it sounds plausible, and she always makes herself look like the victim." He glanced back at the house nervously. "But there's something else. Brenda's been managing money for you. From a family trust. About $15,000 a year that you don't know about. She's supposed to be putting it aside for you, but I don't think she has been." What trust?" "Your grandparents set it up before they died. Both you and Brenda were supposed to get distributions, but Patricia put Brenda in charge of managing yours because you were younger. I've got receipt statements. But Eliza, I can't go against Brenda publicly. She'll do to me what she did to Rachel. I'm sorry. I thought you should know." He pressed a manila envelope into my hands and hurried back toward the house before I could say anything else. I sat there in my car, staring at the envelope. My sister hadn't just been cruel to my daughter, she'd been stealing from me for years. Wednesday morning I dropped Harper at school and drove straight to work, determined to maintain some sense of normalcy. I'd been a pediatric nurse at the clinic for 5 years. I loved my job. I was good at it. Surely my professional life at least was safe from Brenda's reach. I was wrong. My supervisor, Linda Chen, called me into her office before I'd even finished putting my things in my locker. "Eliza, we need to talk." She gestured for me to close the door and sit down. Her expression was grave. "We've received some complaints." My stomach dropped. Complaints. Anonymous complaints filed online through our patient feedback system. Very detailed complaints, actually. They claim that you've been emotionally volatile with patients, that you've made inappropriate comments to children, that you may pose a danger in a pediatric environment. That's not true. None of that is true. Who filed these complaints? They're anonymous, but they cite specific incidents. She pulled up her computer screen and turned it toward me. This one claims that on October 3rd you yelled at a 4-year-old patient who was crying during a vaccination. This one says you told a parent their child's developmental delays were probably their fault. This one alleges that you seemed unhinged and possibly under the influence during a well-child visit last week. I read through the complaints, my hands shaking. The writing style, the phrasing, certain words she used, it was all familiar. My sister wrote these. Your sister. I'm going through a family situation right now. My sister is. I stopped. How could I explain this without sounding exactly as unstable as Brenda was painting me? She's trying to make me look bad. These incidents never happened. You can check the records. You can ask the patients themselves. Linda sighed. Eliza, I believe you. I've worked with you for 5 years and I've never seen you be anything but professional and kind with our patients. But the clinic director doesn't know you as well as I do. With these complaints on file and with, she hesitated, with the social media posts that have been brought to our attention, the director feels we need to take this seriously. Social media posts. Your sister's posts about the incident at her house. Several of them have been shared in local mom groups. Some of our patients' families have seen them. I felt like I was drowning. What does this mean? It means we're placing you on administrative leave effective immediately. 2 weeks without pay pending a full investigation. I'm sorry, Eliza. I really am. I drove home in a fog. 2 weeks without pay meant I'd barely be able to cover rent. I had some savings, but not much. My divorce 3 years ago had wiped out most of what I'd managed to build up. Thursday, I called the lawyer Uncle Frank had recommended a man named Jerome Williams. His office was in a strip mall next to a dry cleaner, which didn't inspire confidence, but I didn't have money for anyone fancy. Jerome was a big man in his 50s with graying hair and kind eyes. He listened to my story without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he sat back in his chair. Okay, let me be straight with you. The restraining order hearing is in 3 weeks. Right now, based on what she's filed and the evidence she has, the judge is likely to grant at least a temporary order. That means you'll be prohibited from coming within 500 feet of your sister's home, her workplace, and her children's school. But Tyler and Connor go to the same school as Harper. I know. Technically, that means you wouldn't be able to attend school events, pick Harper up from the front entrance, things like that. You could probably fight it, but it would take time and money. I don't have money. I just got put on leave from work. He nodded sympathetically. Then we need to be strategic. We need evidence that proves your sister is lying. Witnesses, documents, anything that shows a pattern of her manipulating situations. Until then, you need to be very, very careful. Don't go near her, don't contact her, don't give her any ammunition. I left his office feeling more hopeless than when I'd arrived. Friday evening, I tried to check my bank account to figure out how I was going to make rent, but the website said my account had been frozen. I called the bank's customer service line and spent 40 minutes on hold before finally reaching a human. Yes, Miss Thompson, I show that your mother, Patricia Thompson, removed the funds from your account this morning. She's listed as a joint account holder, so she has full access. She did what? She withdrew $8,200. The account now has a balance of $0 and is frozen pending resolution of a dispute. What dispute? It appears Miss Thompson filed a claim stating the funds were being held for your own protection due to concerns about your mental stability. I hung up the phone and sat on my kitchen floor staring at the wall. I had $60 in cash in my purse. That was it. Rent was due in 10 days and it was $1,200. Harper found me there an hour later, still sitting on the floor. Mommy, are you okay? I pulled myself together and stood up, forcing a smile. I'm fine, baby. Just tired. How about we make pancakes for dinner? That night, after Harper was asleep, I drove to my mother's house. I had to get my money back. I had to make her understand what Brenda was doing. I parked down the street, making absolutely sure Brenda's car wasn't there. I couldn't violate the restraining order even though it wasn't official yet. But as I approached the house, I saw Brenda's silver SUV in the garage. My mother had lied. They were together planning something. I crept closer, staying in the shadows. Through the living room window, I could see them sitting on the couch, papers spread out on the coffee table between them. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught enough. Once CPS gets involved, Brenda was saying I can apply to be Harper's guardian. It'll be temporary at first, but then... Patricia nodded. Harper deserves stability. And she'd fit right in with Tyler and Connor. She's basically their sister already. Exactly. And Eliza clearly can't handle the responsibility. The job situation proves that. The money situation proves that. When the investigator sees she can't even keep a roof over Harper's head. I backed away from the window, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. They were planning to take my daughter. They were actually planning to take Harper away from me. I ran back to my car and drove home, barely able to see the road through my tears. Everything was falling apart. My job, my money, my family, and now they wanted my daughter. The only good thing in my entire life, and they wanted to take her from me. Saturday morning I woke up to someone knocking on my door. When I opened it, a woman in her 30s with a kind face and a clipboard stood on my porch. Eliza Thompson. I'm Angela Torres, a caseworker with Child Protective Services. May I come in? The world tilted. This was happening. They'd actually done it. Of course. Harper was at her friend Madison's house for a playdate, thank God. At least she didn't have to see this. Angela walked through my apartment, slowly taking notes. The apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms, but it was clean and organized. Harper's artwork covered the refrigerator. Photos of us together hung on the walls, chronicling her growth from a tiny baby to the bright 7-year-old she was now. Her bookshelf was full of books we read together every night. Her toys were neatly arranged in bins. Miss Thompson, I received an anonymous report expressing concerns about unstable living conditions and erratic behavior. I have to follow up on all reports, you understand. I understand, but whoever filed that report was lying. My daughter is happy, healthy, and safe. Angela made more notes. Where is your daughter now? At a friend's house. A playdate that was scheduled before I knew you were coming. I'll need to interview her, and I'll need to schedule a follow-up visit. Can you provide documentation of your employment and your financial situation? I provided what I could, though, explaining the suspension from work and my mother stealing my money made me sound exactly as unstable as Brenda wanted me to appear. Angela remained professional but distant. Before she left, she gave me a card with a date and time written on it. I'll be back next Friday to interview Harper. Please make sure she's home. After she left, I sat down and finally opened the envelope Uncle Frank had given me. Inside were bank statements showing deposits into an account under Brenda's name marked as trust distributions for Eliza Thompson. $15,000 every year for the past 5 years. $75,000 that should have been mine. I called Jerome Williams. I have proof she's been stealing from me. Bring it to my office Monday morning. But Eliza, even with this, it's going to be hard to prove she's behind everything else. The CPS call was anonymous. The work complaints were anonymous. Unless we can directly tie them to her. I know who might be able to help. I hung up and searched through my old contacts until I found Rachel's number. I'd saved it years ago but never deleted it. I tried calling, but it was disconnected. I searched social media and finally found her profile. She lived in Oregon now, married with 2 kids. I sent her a message explaining who I was and what was happening. She responded within an hour, "I'll call you." When my phone rang, I answered immediately. "Rachel." "Eliza. God, I can't believe Brenda's doing this to you. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I'm not. She did the same thing to me. Almost exactly the same pattern. Uncle Frank told me a little bit, but I need to know everything. How did you get away from her?" Rachel sighed. "I didn't, not really. I just left. I moved 3 states away and cut off contact with the whole family. It was the only way to escape her. She's meticulous, Eliza. She documents everything she does, but she twists it just enough that she always looks innocent, and her target looks crazy. You need proof, not just your word against hers. And even then, people will want to believe her, because she's so good at playing the victim. I have proof she's been stealing from me. Financial documents. That's a start. But it's not enough to stop her from going after Harper. You need to prove she's a liar, that she's manipulated everything, and that's almost impossible to do." We talked for another hour. Rachel told me about the boyfriend Brenda had stolen from her, the lies she'd spread about drug use that never happened, the way she'd turned the entire family against Rachel until Rachel felt like she was losing her mind. By the end of the conversation, I felt more hopeless than ever. If Rachel hadn't been able to stop Brenda, how could I? Monday morning, I had to do something. I couldn't just sit in my apartment, waiting for everything to crumble. I drove past Brenda's workplace, a real estate office downtown, trying to document her schedule to see if there was any pattern I could use. I parked 3 blocks away to make sure I wasn't violating the restraining order that wasn't quite official yet. I watched her arrive at 9, perfectly dressed in a navy business suit carrying her designer purse. I took photos with my phone time stamped, showing she was going about her normal day while I was falling apart. But then things went horribly wrong. Brenda came back out of her office 20 minutes later. She walked straight toward where I was parked as if she'd known I'd be there all along. When she was close enough, she started yelling. "You're stalking me. Oh my God. Somebody help. She's violating the restraining order." People on the sidewalk stopped and stared. Brenda's coworkers came running out of the office. Someone was already filming on their phone. "I'm not stalking you," I shouted back. "I'm 3 blocks away. This is a public street." But Brenda was backing away, hands up defensively, playing to the growing crowd. "I'm afraid for my life. Somebody call the police." And they did. 2 police cars arrived within 5 minutes, sirens blaring. The same officers who'd come to my house before stepped out, and this time they didn't look sympathetic at all. "Miss Thompson, you're under arrest for violating a restraining order." "The restraining order isn't even official yet. The hearing isn't for 2 more weeks. A temporary order was put in place yesterday. You were served notice. This is a clear violation." I was handcuffed, put in the back of a police car, and taken to the station. The humiliation of being fingerprinted and photographed, of sitting in a holding cell for 8 hours before Jerome could arrange bail, was nothing compared to the terror of what this meant for Harper. I used my last available credit card to post bail. By the time Jerome got me out, it was almost 6 in the evening. Patricia had picked up Harper from school using her emergency contact authorization. When I finally got to Patricia's house to pick up Harper, my daughter ran into my arms crying. "Grandma said you had to talk to police because you made bad choices." Harper sobbed into my shoulder. "Are they going to take you away from me?" I held her tight, unable to answer, because I honestly didn't know. Patricia stood in the doorway watching us with an expression I couldn't read. "This is what I'm talking about, Eliza. This is exactly what I mean. You're out of control." I didn't argue. I just took Harper home. That night, as I tucked her into bed, Harper asked, "Are we going to be okay, Mommy?" I smoothed her hair back and kissed her forehead. "Yes, baby. We're going to be okay. I promise." But I didn't know how I was going to keep that promise. Tuesday, I had to appear in court for the restraining order violation. Jerome met me outside the courthouse looking grim. "This doesn't look good, Eliza. They have security footage showing your car near her workplace. They have witness statements from her coworkers. The fact that you were there at all, even 3 blocks away, is going to be interpreted as stalking behavior." The hearing was brief and brutal. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, barely looked at me as she reviewed the evidence. Brenda sat on the opposite side of the courtroom with her lawyer dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. The judge's ruling was swift. "The restraining order is hereby extended and strengthened. Miss Thompson, you are to stay at least 500 feet from Miss Brenda Carson at all times. This includes her home, her workplace, and her children's school. 1 more violation and you will face jail time. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor." Walking out of that courtroom, I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Wednesday was the CPS follow-up visit. Angela Torres arrived at exactly 3 in the afternoon. Harper sat on the couch, nervous and scared. I'd tried to prepare her, told her to just answer the questions honestly, but I could see how anxious she was. Angela asked Harper about school, about our home life, about whether she felt safe. Harper answered each question carefully, but then Angela asked, "Are you worried about your mom, Harper?" Harper's eyes filled with tears. "Sometimes. Mommy hasn't been sleeping. She cries at night. I hear her." Angela's expression shifted slightly, and she made more notes in her file. I could practically see the report taking shape in my mind, each observation another mark against me. Unstable mother. Child showing signs of stress. Living situation tenuous. After Angela left, I held Harper while she cried. "Did I say something wrong?" "No, baby. You told the truth. That's all you can do." Thursday morning, I received an email from the clinic. Not from Linda, my supervisor, but from the director himself. The investigation had concluded. Due to an abundance of personal drama affecting the work environment and concerns raised by patients' families who had seen the social media posts, my employment was being terminated, effective immediately. I'd been fired. Two patients' families had specifically requested that I not be involved in their children's care after seeing Brenda's posts. The clinic couldn't risk the liability, couldn't risk the reputation damage. They included 2 weeks severance pay, which was more generous than they had to be, but it was nowhere near enough to keep me afloat. I sat at my kitchen table and did the math. After rent, utilities, food, and Harper's basic needs, I had maybe 3 weeks before we'd be evicted. I had no job, no prospects, and a restraining order that made me look like a dangerous criminal. Friday afternoon, my mother called. "Eliza, this has gone too far. You need to listen to me." "I'm listening." "You need to move out of state. Start over somewhere fresh, somewhere you can get your head on straight. Leave Harper with Brenda and me for 6 months, while you get back on your feet. It's the loving choice, honey. It's what's best for Harper." "You want me to just give up my daughter?" "Not give up, just let us help while you recover. Brenda and Derek have already spoken to their lawyer. They can file for temporary guardianship. It would all be legal and proper. And if you fight it, Eliza, we'll have to tell CPS that you can't provide for Harper financially. They'll place her with us anyway, but it'll be messier. It'll hurt Harper more. Don't make this ugly." I hung up on her. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced my apartment trying to figure out a way out of this trap Brenda had built around me. Every solution I came up with led to a worse problem. If I fought the guardianship, I'd look uncooperative and unstable. If I didn't fight it, I'd lose Harper. If I tried to find a new job, Brenda's social media posts would follow me. If I tried to defend myself publicly, I'd look like I was harassing her. She'd boxed me in perfectly. At 2 a.m, my phone buzzed with an email notification. The sender was listed only as J.M. The subject line read, "I believe you, I can help." I opened it with shaking hands. The email contained screenshots of a private Facebook group called Brenda's Victims. 7 women were members. The most recent post was from someone named Janet Miller. "Is anyone else seeing what Brenda Carson is doing to her sister? It's the same pattern she used on me 5 years ago." Below that, more posts. More women sharing their stories. Heather Ross. "She destroyed my marriage and convinced everyone I was paranoid and controlling." Amy Clark. "She cost me my job at the real estate office when I wouldn't cover for her shady deals." Each woman had a story. Each story followed the same pattern. Brenda identified a threat, someone who was happier, or more successful, or had something she wanted. She befriended them initially. Then, she systematically undermined them. She created public incidents where she was the victim. She turned social circles against her target. And then she profited from their downfall, whether it was taking their job, their reputation, their partner, or their peace of mind. At the bottom of the email was a phone number and a message. "We've been documenting her patterns for 2 years. We were too afraid to act. But watching what she's doing to you and Harper, we can't stay silent anymore. Call me, Janet." I called the number immediately, not caring that it was 2 a.m. Janet answered on the second ring. "Eliza." "Yes." "Oh my God, yes. You have no idea how much I needed this." "I have some idea. Brenda almost destroyed my small business 3 years ago with fake bad reviews and by stealing my clients. It took me 2 years to recover. But I kept records. I kept everything. And when I found out I wasn't the only one, when I connected with Heather and Amy and the others, we started comparing notes." "Why didn't you do anything before now?" "Because we were afraid. Brenda is very, very good at making herself look innocent. She has the whole family, the whole community convinced she's this perfect person. Going up against her seemed impossible. But what she's doing to you, trying to take your daughter, that's different. That's a line too far. And if we work together, if we all come forward with our evidence at the same time, maybe we can finally stop her." For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope, tiny and fragile, but real. What do I need to do? Meet with us. Tomorrow, we have a plan. Saturday morning, I dropped Harper off at her friend Madison's house for the day and drove to a coffee shop on the edge of town. Janet, Heather, and Amy were already there, sitting at a corner table with laptops and file folders spread out around them. Janet was in her early 40s with short, dark hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She'd been a paralegal before Brenda had targeted her, so she knew how to document evidence properly. Heather was younger, maybe 30, with long red hair and a nervous energy that suggested she was still healing from whatever Brenda had done to her. Amy was somewhere in between blonde and athletic, with the kind of contained anger that came from being wronged and having no recourse. "Thank you for meeting with us," Janet said as I sat down. "I know this is scary. It's scary for us too. But we think we can help you, and in the process, maybe get some justice for ourselves." They showed me what they'd compiled over the past 2 years. Emails, text messages, social media posts, financial records. They'd created a timeline for each of Brenda's attacks, and the pattern was undeniable. She followed the same playbook every single time. First, she identified someone who threatened her in some way. Maybe they were prettier, smarter, more successful, or just happier than her. Second, she befriended them, getting close enough to learn their weaknesses. Third, she began subtly undermining them, planting seeds of doubt, spreading small rumors. Fourth, she created a public incident where she positioned herself as the victim. Fifth, she turned social circles, family, or professional contacts against her target. And finally, she profited from their downfall, whether that meant taking their job, their reputation, their relationships, or in my case, potentially taking my daughter. "She's a narcissist," Heather said quietly. "A textbook case. She needs to be the center of attention, the most important person in any room. Anyone who threatens that position becomes her enemy." "The problem is," Amy added, "she's extremely smart about it. She never leaves obvious evidence. She uses anonymous complaints. She twists the truth just enough that it's plausible. And she always has witnesses who'll back her up because they don't realize they're being manipulated." "So how do we stop her?" I asked. Janet leaned forward. "We make her overconfident. We make her think she's won. And then, we get her to reveal herself." They explained the plan. It was risky, maybe even reckless, but it was the only chance I had. I would appear to give up. I would contact my mother and tell her I was ready to sign the temporary guardianship papers. Brenda, believing she'd won, would let her guard down. And while that was happening, Janet would use her legal knowledge to set traps that would force Brenda to show her true nature. "The key is recording," Janet explained. "In our state, recording conversations is legal with one-party consent. That means if you're part of the conversation, you can record it without telling the other person. When you go to sign those guardianship papers, you'll be wearing a wire. And we'll have cameras set up to catch everything." "What if she doesn't say anything incriminating?" "She will. We've studied her long enough to know. When she thinks she's won, when she's feeling triumphant, she can't help herself. She needs to gloat. She needs her victims to know how clever she was, how thoroughly she outmaneuvered them. It's part of her sickness." Sunday, I sent a text message to Patricia. "You're right. I need help. I can't do this anymore. I'm ready to sign the guardianship papers, whatever's best for Harper." Patricia responded within minutes. "Oh, honey, I'm so relieved. You're making the right choice. Come to the house Tuesday at 6. We'll have everything ready." I showed the text to Janet. She nodded. "Perfect. That gives us 2 days to prepare." Monday, Janet came to my apartment posing as a friend visiting for coffee. She actually brought a small recording device that looked like a button on my shirt. She showed me how to activate it with a simple touch. "The camera will be in your mother's living room. I'll get it set up Tuesday afternoon. I've done work for Patricia before, helping her with some estate planning documents, so she won't think twice about me being at her house." Tuesday afternoon, I was so nervous I could barely function. I kept checking the recording device, making sure it was working, terrified it would fail at the critical moment. At 5:30, I got a text from Janet. "Camera is in place. You're good to go." I drove to Patricia's house, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. This was it. Everything depended on the next hour. When I walked in, Patricia hugged me. "I'm so proud of you for doing this, Eliza. It takes real strength to admit when you need help." Brenda was already there, sitting on the couch with Derek beside her. Papers were spread out on the coffee table. A notary public, a woman I didn't recognize, sat in the armchair with her stamp and seal ready. "Eliza." Brenda stood up and came toward me, her arms outstretched as if to hug me. "I'm so glad you're being reasonable about this. Harper is going to be so much happier with us. We can give her everything she needs." I forced myself not to flinch away from her touch. "I just want what's best for her." "Of course you do. You're a good mother, Eliza. You're just going through a hard time. We all understand." We sat down. The notary began explaining the documents. Temporary guardianship giving Brenda and Derek legal authority over Harper for 6 months, with the possibility of extension if I hadn't stabilized by then. I would have visitation rights supervised, of course. But all major decisions about Harper's life would be made by Brenda. I picked up the pen, then set it down. "Can I ask you something first?" "Of course," Patricia said. I looked directly at Brenda. "Why do you hate me so much?" The room went silent. Brenda's perfect smile faltered for just a moment. "I don't hate you, Eliza. I love you. You're my sister." "Then why? Why the note at the party? Why all of this? What did I ever do to you?" I could see her struggling, wanting to maintain her victim persona, but also wanting to let me know how completely she'd beaten me. The temptation was too great. "You really want to know?" Her voice had changed, become harder, colder. "You were always Dad's favorite, his little princess. He spent all his time with you, took you everywhere, called you special. I was just there, just the older daughter he tolerated. And when he died, his life insurance got split evenly between us, even though I was older, even though I'd needed him more." Brenda Patricia said quietly, warning in her voice. But Brenda couldn't stop now. 20 years of resentment was pouring out of her. "You got everything, Eliza. You got to be the pretty one, the smart one, the likable one. Everyone always loved you more. Even Mom, especially Mom." "That's not true," Patricia protested weakly. "It is true," Brenda's voice rose. "And I decided years ago that you were going to pay for it. Every accomplishment, every moment of happiness, I made sure to undermine it. Your marriage, I spent 2 years telling your husband you were too unstable to be a good wife. Your job, child's play, to file some anonymous complaints. Your reputation, even easier. And now Harper. Sweet innocent little Harper who looks just like you did at that age. She should have been mine anyway. If Dad had paid attention to me instead of you, maybe Mom would have encouraged me to have more children. But no, it was always Eliza, Eliza, Eliza." Derek put his hand on her arm. "Honey, maybe you should." She shook him off. "No. She needs to understand. She needs to know how thoroughly I beat her. The CPS call, that was me. The work complaints me. The social media posts, every single word carefully crafted to destroy her credibility. And the best part, the absolute best part, I've been taking her trust money for 5 years. $15,000 a year that was supposed to be hers. I've been living off it, using it to take my boys on vacations, to buy my perfect house, to build my perfect life. And there's nothing she can do about it." "I knew," Patricia whispered, and we all turned to look at her. "I knew you were taking the money. I knew you were lying about Eliza. I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to believe my daughter could be so cruel. So I chose to believe you instead. I'm sorry, Eliza. I'm so sorry." Brenda laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Oh, please, Mother, you're not sorry. You just didn't want to face the truth that your precious golden child Brenda isn't perfect." The front door opened, and Jerome Williams walked in with 2 police officers. Janet, Heather, and Amy came in behind them. Brenda's face went white. "What is this?" Janet held up her phone, which had been live streaming everything to Jerome's office. "That's a confession to fraud, harassment, filing false reports, and about 6 other charges. All recorded with legal consent, since Eliza was part of the conversation." The officers approached Brenda. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us to answer some questions." As they led her out in handcuffs, still protesting her innocence, Derek stood frozen in shock. Patricia sank onto the couch, her face in her hands. Janet handed me a binder. This contains documented cases from 7 other women Brenda has targeted over the past 10 years. Financial fraud, harassment, defamation. We're all filing formal complaints. Together, the evidence is overwhelming. The notary quietly packed up her things and left without a word. I looked at my mother. Did you really know? Patricia nodded, tears streaming down her face. Not all of it. Not at first. But over the years I started to see the patterns. The way she talked about people who'd supposedly wronged her. The way those people always seemed to end up ruined. I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself my daughter couldn't be capable of such cruelty. I chose to believe her lies because it was easier than facing the truth. And in doing so, I enabled her to hurt you. I'm so sorry. I wanted to rage at her, to scream about all the pain she could have prevented. But looking at her broken expression, I realized she was a victim too. Not in the same way I was, but a victim nonetheless of Brenda's manipulation. I need time, I told her. I need time to process all of this. But eventually maybe we can talk. Jerome drove me home. The restraining order will be dropped immediately. The charges against you for violating it will be dismissed. Your employer will be contacted about the false complaints. CPS will close their investigation. And you'll get your money back with interest. What will happen to Brenda? That depends on whether she takes a plea deal or goes to trial. But between the theft, the false reports, and the harassment, she's looking at probation at minimum, possibly jail time. Her reputation is finished. And her victims finally get to tell their stories. As I walked into my apartment, my phone buzzed with messages from Janet, Heather, Amy, and the other women from the group. Words of support, of celebration, of relief that someone had finally stopped Brenda. But I didn't feel celebratory. I felt exhausted and sad and so very tired. My family was broken, probably beyond repair. My sister was likely going to prison. My mother had enabled years of abuse. And my daughter had been caught in the middle of all of it. Harper was still at Madison's house. I had a few hours before I had to pick her up. A few hours to figure out how to explain all of this to a 7-year-old who shouldn't have to understand such darkness. But at least she was safe. At least we were finally free. The next 2 months passed in a strange blur of legal proceedings and slow healing. Brenda took a plea deal to avoid trial. She was sentenced to 2 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, and ordered to repay the $75,000 she'd stolen from my trust plus damages to cover my lost wages and legal fees. Her real estate license was suspended. Derek filed for divorce. Tyler and Connor were confused and hurt by everything that had happened, and part of me ached for them, even though their mother had tried to destroy my life. Patricia reached out several times asking to talk. The first few times I wasn't ready, but eventually I agreed to meet her for coffee at a neutral location. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said, her hands wrapped around her cup like she needed its warmth. I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself. But I need you to know that I see it now. I see all the times I chose the easy path instead of the right one. All the times I believed Brenda's lies because confronting the truth would have been too painful. I enabled her to hurt you, to hurt Harper, to hurt all those other women. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make amends for that. Why did you do it? I asked. Why did you always take her side? Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Because I was afraid of her. I know how that sounds. Afraid of my own daughter. But Brenda has a way of making you feel like you're the problem, like you're the one causing drama just by questioning her. And it was easier to believe that you were too sensitive, too dramatic, too unstable, than to face the fact that I'd raised someone capable of such calculated cruelty. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I failed you as a mother. I failed to protect you from your own sister. I can't undo that, but I want to try to be the mother I should have been. If you'll let me. Even if it takes years. Even if you're never able to fully trust me again. I want to try. I didn't know if I could forgive her. Not completely, not yet. But I could see her pain was genuine. I could see she was finally willing to face the truth she'd spent years avoiding. "We can try," I said. Slowly. "With boundaries. But we can try." Patricia nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Thank you." True to her word, Patricia began making concrete amends. She transferred ownership of the lake house to me, outright not splitting it with Brenda as originally planned. She set up college funds for Harper. She started going to therapy to understand how she'd enabled Brenda's behavior for so long. The relationship between us was fragile and new, like learning to walk again after an injury, but it was something. My clinic offered me my job back with a formal apology and a raise. Apparently, once the truth came out about the false complaints, several of the families who'd requested I not care for their children specifically asked for me. My reputation was restored. Janet, Heather, Amy, and the other women from the support group became genuine friends. We called ourselves the Survivors Club, though never in a way that made light of what we'd been through. We met twice a month for coffee or dinner, sharing our healing journeys and supporting each other through the lingering trauma of Brenda's manipulations. Rachel, my cousin who'd moved away years ago, flew in to visit. We spent a whole weekend talking, crying, and rebuilding the relationship Brenda had destroyed. She'd lost so much time with the family, years of her life lived in exile because no one had believed her. Now, finally, she had validation. Several family members reached out to apologize to her. It didn't undo the pain, but it was something. The hardest part was talking to Harper. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that her aunt tried to take her away, that her grandmother knew and did nothing? That family can hurt you just as badly as strangers, maybe worse. I tried to keep it simple and age-appropriate. Sometimes people hurt others because they're hurting inside themselves. Aunt Brenda was very angry about things that had nothing to do with you. What she did was wrong, and it was never ever your fault. You are wonderful exactly as you are. You didn't need to try harder. You were always enough. Harper processed this in the way children do, asking questions over days and weeks rather than all at once. Is Aunt Brenda sick? Will she get better? Are you and Grandma okay? Now will Tyler and Connor be okay? I answered each question, as honestly as I could, while still protecting her from the worst details. I made sure she started seeing a child therapist who specialized in family trauma. I watched her carefully for signs of lasting damage, ready to provide whatever support she needed. 6 months after everything happened, it was Tyler and Connor's 10th birthday. Brenda sent a supervised letter through her lawyer inviting Harper to the party. The letter was carefully worded, probably written by the lawyer rather than Brenda herself, acknowledging wrongdoing and expressing hope that someday there could be healing. I let Harper make the choice. She thought about it for a long time, her small face serious. "I don't want to go, Mommy," she finally said. "Maybe when I'm older. Maybe when she's different. But I'm not mad anymore. I just want to be with people who are nice to me." I hugged her tight. "That's a very wise decision, sweetheart. And you can always change your mind later when you're ready." Instead, we planned our own celebration. Patricia had given us the lake house, and we invited Rachel, Janet, Heather, Amy, and all their families for a summer weekend. Harper ran and played with their children, her laughter echoing across the water. We grilled food, told stories, and built the kind of family we chose rather than the one we were born into. On the last evening, as the sun set over the lake, turning the water gold and pink, Harper asked for paper and markers. She sat on the dock and drew for almost an hour, tongue poking out in concentration. When she finished, she showed me her artwork. It was a picture of her and me, holding hands, surrounded by all our new chosen family. At the top, in her careful 7-year-old handwriting, she'd written, "We are enough." I framed it and hung it in our living room where I could see it every day. The next morning, Harper found a gift bag on the kitchen table. Not one of Brenda's cruel jokes, but a real gift I'd prepared. Inside was a beautiful journal with a purple cover, her favorite color. I'd written a note and taped it to the first page. "My darling Harper, you are enough. You have always been enough. You are loved exactly as you are. You are kind, brave, creative, and wonderful. Don't let anyone ever make you feel like you need to try harder to deserve love. Real love doesn't come with conditions. Keep being your wonderful self. I'm so proud to be your mom. Love always, Mom. Harper read it twice, then hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. I love you, Mommy. I love you too, baby. Always. Looking back on everything that happened, I learned lessons I never wanted to learn, but needed to understand. I learned that standing up to cruelty doesn't mean becoming cruel yourself. It means holding your truth with dignity, seeking justice through proper channels, and surrounding yourself with people who celebrate you rather than diminish you. I learned that family isn't just blood, it's who shows up when things are hard. It's Janet bringing over groceries when I couldn't afford them. It's Heather babysitting Harper, so I could meet with lawyers. It's Amy teaching Harper to ride a bike while I was falling apart. It's Rachel flying across the country to stand beside me. It's chosen, not assigned. I learned that enabling hurts everyone involved. Patricia's refusal to confront Brenda's behavior didn't protect anyone. It allowed the abuse to continue and escalate. Real love sometimes means having hard conversations and setting firm boundaries, even when it's uncomfortable. Most importantly, I learned that the best gift I can give my daughter isn't protection from every hurt, but the strength to know her own worth regardless of who tries to tear it down. Some people will try to make you small because they feel small inside. You don't owe them your light. You owe yourself the courage to shine anyway. Harper is thriving now. She's confident and happy, doing well in school, making friends easily. Sometimes I still see a shadow cross her face when someone mentions Aunt Brenda, but it's getting less frequent. She's learning that she can be hurt by someone and still be okay. That survival is possible. That she's stronger than she knew. As for Brenda, I heard through the family grapevine that she's completed her community service and is in intensive therapy as part of her probation. Derek got full custody of Tyler and Connor, though she has supervised visitation. Her reputation in town is destroyed. The women's group she used to belong to asked her to leave. Her real estate career is over. Part of me feels sad about it. Not for her exactly, but for the waste of it all. She could have chosen differently at any point. She could have dealt with her childhood pain in healthy ways. She could have been a loving sister, a supportive aunt. Instead, she chose to spread her misery to everyone around her, and now she's paying the price. I don't know if she'll ever truly change. Narcissists rarely do. But that's not my responsibility anymore. My responsibility is to Harper, to myself, to the life we're building together. We're happy now. Genuinely, peacefully happy, in a way I didn't think was possible during those dark months when everything was falling apart. We have Sunday dinners with our chosen family. We spend summers at the lake house. Harper is learning to swim and to fish and to believe in herself. And sometimes when I tuck her in at night and watch her sleep, I think about that gift bag, that yellow sticky note, those cruel words that started this whole journey. I think about how close we came to losing everything, and I'm grateful for the strength we found, the allies who appeared when we needed them most, and the wisdom that came from surviving something I never imagined I'd have to face. We're enough. We've always been enough. And no one will ever make us feel otherwise again. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to stand up to someone you loved who was hurting you? How did you find the strength to protect yourself or your children from toxic family dynamics? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who's going through something similar. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and share this video with anyone who might need to hear it. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it brought you some comfort, some strength, or just the reminder that you're not alone. Take care of yourselves, and remember that you're always enough exactly as you are.